Medieval families did not live in one room because they wanted simplicity or closeness. They lived that way because the medieval world punished separation. Space was dangerous, distance was costly, privacy was a risk few could afford. For most medieval people, the home was not a refuge from life. It was a front line against it. Cold, hunger, disease, animals, fire, thieves, and unseen forces pressed constantly against the walls. The house existed to keep death out, not comfort in. Every beam, every wall, every corner had to serve survival. Building materials were scarce and expensive. Timber had to be cut, hauled, shaped. Stone had to be quarried and transported. Clay had to be dug and fired. Every additional wall increased labor, cost, and time. For a peasant family, even one enclosed room represented years of work. More rooms were unimaginable. Heating alone dictated everything. Fire was life. Without fire, food could not be cooked, water could not be warmed, clothes could not be dried, and bodies could not endure winter. Heat stayed where the fire was. Medieval houses did not distribute warmth. One hearth meant one livable space. Any room without fire became a cold trap. Winter killed relentlessly. Dampness seeped into bones. Wind entered through cracks in walls and roofs. Cold weakened the body, slowed healing, and invited illness. People learned quickly that warmth came from proximity. Sleeping apart was not independence, it was exposure. At night, bodies clustered together for survival. Parents, children, elders, servants, even guests slept within arm's reach, not out of affection, but necessity. Breath warmed the air. Shared blankets preserved heat. Separation meant suffering. Light was precious. Candles required beeswax or tallow. Oil had to be bought. Darkness dominated most hours. One room could be lit. Multiple rooms fell into shadow. Darkness was not neutral. It meant falls, injuries, fear, and imagined threats. Keeping everyone in one illuminated space reduced danger. Cooking controlled the home's layout. The hearth was the heart of the house. Smoke filled the air. Blackened beams burned eyes and lungs. Pots hung overhead. Meat cured slowly above the fire. Bread baked nearby. Cooking could not be moved elsewhere. Everything revolved around the flame. Food storage was constant anxiety. Grain attracted rodents. Meat spoiled quickly. Insects infested everything. One room allowed vigilance. Eyes watched constantly. Nothing was left unattended for long. Animals shared the space because they mattered. Chickens, goats, pigs, sometimes cattle slept inside or just beside the living area. They provided food, labor, and warmth. They were valuable. Leaving them outside meant theft or death. Their presence added heat, sound, and smell, but also security. Disease shaped daily decisions. Medieval people did not know bacteria, but they knew patterns. Cold made people sick. Damp air caused weakness. Crowding was believed to preserve warmth and strength. Isolation felt unnatural and dangerous. Privacy was not a medieval value. Life was communal by design. Identity was not individual, it was familial. Survival depended on cooperation. Personal space was meaningless when every hand mattered. Children grew up seeing everything. There was no separation between childhood and adulthood. Birth happened in the same room where meals were eaten. Pain was witnessed. Blood was familiar. Death occurred where people slept. Bodies were washed and prepared in front of family. Beds were rare and shared. Mattresses were sacks of straw or rags. Many slept on benches or floors. Several people shared one bed regardless of age or gender. This was practical, not immoral. Warmth mattered more than modesty. Silence was unsettling. A quiet house suggested absence. Noise meant life. Coughing, breathing, animals shifting, fire crackling. These sounds reassured people that they were not alone. Defense demanded closeness. Medieval locks were weak. Doors were thin. One room allowed rapid response. If danger came, everyone woke together. Thieves, fire, or violence required immediate action. Separation slowed reaction. Togetherness saved lives. Even within one room, hierarchy ruled. The warmest places belonged to those with authority. Children slept farther from the fire. Servants stayed near entrances. Space was social, not architectural. Smell was constant. Smoke, sweat, animals, waste, food, damp clothing. Ventilation was poor. The medieval nose adapted. Smell was information, not disgust. It signaled sickness, fire, decay, or danger. Illness unfolded publicly. Fevers burned in shared air. Wounds festered in sight of all. Care was collective. Isolation was feared. Being alone while sick felt like abandonment. Religion reinforced this openness. God saw everything. Privacy suggested secrecy. Secrecy suggested sin. Living openly meant moral supervision. Everyone witnessed behavior. Shame had witnesses. Even wealthy households lived more communally than modern minds expect. Castles were vast but cold. Rooms were few. Servants slept nearby. Lords were rarely alone. True privacy was rare even among elites. Children learned quickly. Innocence did not last. One room exposed them to reality early. Fear, labor, death. Nothing was hidden. Solitude carried suspicion. Hermits withdrew from society. Prisoners were isolated as punishment. Ordinary people avoided being alone. Alone meant unprotected. Emotion had no private space. Grief was immediate and shared. Arguments echoed with no escape. Reconciliation was forced by proximity. Distance was not an option. Bodies were not sacred private zones. They were tools for labor and survival. Exposure was normal. Shame depended on context, not walls. Night magnified fear. Darkness bred stories of spirits, demons, thieves. Being alone after sunset was terrifying. Togetherness brought courage. Fire demanded constant attention. Someone was always awake. A single room made vigilance possible. Multiple rooms increased risk. Fire was useful but unforgiving. Dreams were heard. Nightmares were shared aloud. Fear traveled quickly. Comfort followed just as fast. Medieval families did not idealize this life. They endured it. One room was crowded, suffocating, exhausting, but it worked. Together meant alive. Apart meant vulnerable. The one room home was not a sign of ignorance. It was adaptation. Walls did not protect medieval people. People protected each other. The room was small because life itself was fragile. And by concentrating life into one space, medieval families increased their chance to see another morning.